What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Musings podcast studio. I am super excited to be joined by my first ever dedicated comic colorist, Mr. Steve Canon. How you doing tonight? Hey,
Very, very well.
oos.
I'm
we
excited.
we found out you're a jiu-jitsu guy. We gotta bow and say oos.
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. I can't complain. Everything's going well right now. So, yeah, I'm excited.
I love to hear it. Yeah, once I started up, I mainly had the podcast social media. I was on Instagram, but I actually, when I got on X, aka the artist formerly known as Twitter, and I started getting on there. Found this whole new world of creators on there that I was discovering, and it seemed like the level of interaction and everything was popping off over there way more than on Instagram. I feel like Instagram, that connectivity with the artists and the creative community kind of died down a little bit or something.
Yeah, I was the same. I used to only be on Instagram and that was fine, whatever. But when I went on Twitter, it was that's where all the creators were actually like
Yeah.
doing social media and like saying what they think and posting, whatever. And it was just so much easier to kind of, be like, "Hey, I colored this thing of yours," and they will comment on it or share
Yeah,
it or
they
something.
actually interact on there. It's
Yeah, it was
really
great.
cool. Yeah, I did a
Even now,
little.
I know a lot of people like moved over to Blue Sky or whatever,
Yeah.
but even still, X is kind of like where everybody's.
It's still the main one, despite people not wanting to be on there for whatever reasons, and that could be valid, invalid. However, everybody's got to go where they feel comfortable. But I feel
Hmm.
like Blue Sky hasn't really taken off to that level, and I
Yeah,
still feel like more than three-quarters of the creators kept their Twitter or their X open and are still interacting on there. So I'm just
yeah,
there for the comics and in the creative community. So I, I
same.
I think you can curate it and tailor it to be whatever you want it to be.
Absolutely, yeah. It kind of, the algorithm goes to whatever you like, So
Yeah.
if you like comics, it'll show you comics all day.
Yeah, mine's comics all day, 24/7. And that's how I discovered your work. So I noticed you were very active on there, and you were posting a lot of awesome stuff you've done over some of my favorite artists. Like you've done work on Brett Booth and Neto Diaz, and was it is it Ivan Coelho? Is
Yeah.
another, like, all these up and coming talents. You've been putting some colors on them. That has to be really
Yeah.
cool.
Well, some of them, like Brett Booth, I just did my first like actual professional work with him recently for McFarlane, and so that was like a huge, like I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm coloring this right now.
Surreal.
But I've been coloring his stuff for fun for a while, and I get commissioned sometimes to color his like Patreon stuff. Somebody will
Yeah.
have somebody ink it, and they'll send me an X-Men piece to like color for their private, collections or whatever.
Right. Right.
So that's been like it's like, oh, you want me to color a Burt Booth? Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Twist
And
my
then some of
arm.
the guys
Right.
I just yeah, right. It's some of the guys I just color like for fun or like
Yeah.
if I'm doing a portfolio or something, I'll
Stretch your creative skills a little bit and see how your
hmm.
work, how you mesh with other style artists. Right.
Yeah, and like I feel like when if you want to show Marvel or DC, you want them to take notice, you kind of have to work on their stuff so they can see what you look like over their characters.
Yeah. Yeah, there was something specific that popped into my head earlier that I wanted to ask you about working with different artists or coloring different artists' work. Do you find, because I know some artists, like, say, for example, somebody like Ryan Otley, like when he was on Invincible, he left his line work very open with
Hmm.
very minimal rendering, which just allowed the colorist to go to town, right? Like
Yeah.
you were seeing like some of the colorists he was paired with. It was just phenomenal what they were doing on his work because of the open nature of it. Is it challenging to is it more challenging to work on somebody that's heavily rendered versus open line art, or is it do both present their own set of challenges to you?
So both, I would say maybe it's a little easier to work with somebody who does a lot of the rendering because you don't have to do so much thinking. They kind of
Right.
show you where the light is coming from,
Showing you the
where's the
form.
shadows, yeah,
Yeah.
where are the forms, where they want the highlights. Everything is kind of already there. The issue that comes with that is that if you're not careful, you can put so much more extra detail that it's too much everywhere, and
Right.
then the reader doesn't know where to look. They don't know what's the focus. So there's the play with that. And then with guys that leave it open, it's a lot more work because you have to create all the lighting
Yeah.
and the shadows and the focus and everything. They just kind of leave it up to you, which is great because you can really show kind of your skill. But when it's a tight deadline or something,
Oh
it can
yeah.
be tough.
Yeah, having that extra freedom has to be nice in one sense, but like you said, it's a lot more thinking, and it also it's gonna push the expanse of your skill set to work on that because like you were saying with the artist doing the rendering, they're showing you the lighting and they're showing you a lot of times the shape of the form and everything. And
Hmm.
I know you're a more experienced colorist, but maybe for a newer colorist getting into things, looking at that, if they don't have an understanding of form and lighting, that has to be a little bit of a daunting task.
Yeah, I mean, another thing too is for newer guys, it can be that they're working on line art that's showing something, but if they don't quite understand it yet, they can be lighting it in a way that's against what the artist put down.
Yeah,
And so you learn either way, the kind of like, I mean, I didn't go to school for art, so it's just like color the thing and
yeah,
make it look cool was like my mandate. And
yeah,
then I started learning along the way and figuring it out. And I got a lot of critiques and stuff, so a lot of people have helped me along the way, being like, "Hey, this looks weird," or like
yeah.
whatever. My wife also, she's not an artist by like trade or anything, but she has that like eye where she knows if something looks off or like
My
something could look a
wife,
little bit cooler.
yeah, my
So
wife
I'm
does the
always like,
same.
"Hey, babe, what do you think about this?" Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
my
actually, it could be like, okay,
my
thanks.
wife was a graphic designer for many years, so she
Mm,
has that kind of eye. So when
hmm.
she looks at it, it's like it's cool, but something's off about it. And then it's like,
Oh
okay, well,
yeah,
let's
I know
figure
that
out
one.
what's off. It's great
I
though
know
if you
that one.
can, especially when you have somebody you trust giving you that kind of feedback.
Hmm.
It's definitely helpful. Speaking of, we talked about things that are daunting for amateur artists, and you spoke about, not really having like formal art training. What made you gravitate towards coloring? How take me back to when you first started. Well, let's rewind all the way back to how you got into comics. What's kind of
Okay,
your, because that's got to be where it started, right?
let's take you back to the days
Here we go.
of 1992. No, I was like 2 years old back then. But no, so I got into comics. I've always been into art. I've always been into cartoons. I used to watch, X-Men and Batman and all that stuff when I was a kid. So I've always been aware of superheroes and I've always been into art. Like even when I used to play video games or whatever, I would always like look through the little booklets
Mm-hmm.
back when the games had booklets
Yeah.
and like I'd make my mom like I'd pester her to like buy me the guide to
Yep.
like a game that I didn't even have just because I was like, oh, look, Zelda, like look at all the monsters or whatever.
Yep.
I love the art. So I've always been into it in that way, but it wasn't until I was a teenager that I got into comics because one of my older cousins, he was moving away, just he was older and he was like moving out of the house and just leaving all his stuff behind. and I found this big box of comics that was just like, Spawn number one
Oh
and
man.
Wildcats and X-Men number one, like just all that stuff. And I just was like, what is
Yeah.
this stuff? Like, because, I was aware of Wolverine and all those characters, but I'd never seen Jim Lee's Wolverine
Right.
or like Spawn. Like, the first time I saw Spawn, I was like, who is this? I've never seen this character. So that kind of got me on the path of like, oh, there's comic books. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
So yeah, I got into that, and I was trying to, yeah, let me learn how to draw by trying to redraw Spider-Man number one cover by Todd McFarlane. That's a great place to start, right? With all the
In
webs and
theory, in theory.
yeah, the 10,000 spiders that are on there.
Yep.
That's what you do when you're like 12 and you're like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah, a lot
Um,
of imitation at that stage, right? Like
oh yeah.
trying to process how they're doing what they're doing.
Oh, not even. I was just like, this looks cool. I wanna
I want to
like
make
let
my
me
own
put
version.
my paper on top and try to like trace it. And it's funny because I didn't know that comics had a value or anything. So if you look at my copy that I got, I still have those books that I got from my cousin, and they're all like beat up, and like one of them's got like soda stains because I had it in my backpack from school,
Sacrilege for a collector.
like my sandwich like spilled on it or something, like you know. But I didn't know. I just thought they were cool, and I wanted to have them with me like all the time. And that kind of got me into that. But as a teenager, when I got into high school and all that, I got into playing guitar, and that was it for like the next like 10 years. I didn't look at a comic book or anything like that. Then later in life, when I was in like my 20s already, I was living in LA and I was working as a guitar builder. And like, I don't know if people have been to LA or whatever, but when you go on the metro at that time, there was no phone service or anything. So I would have these like hour-long rides on the bus and the train, and I'll just be super bored.
Right.
And one day I went to Barnes and Noble, and I was like, man, I'm so bored on these train rides. Let me see what's up with comics. And I got the new 52 Batman, and the moment I read volume one of Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder's Batman, I was like,
Yeah, mind
I'm
blowing.
back in the pool. And I just started buying everything, and I just was back into comics and being a fan, not even trying to do art, just like being a fan and wanting to like see what was up and getting back into Jim Lee because he was doing Justice League and all that stuff. So yeah, Greg Capullo and Jim Lee pulled me back in.
They pulled you back into the fold, and then when did the inspiration to start creating? Because you were creating with music, and you were doing the guitar building and all of that. But when did you feel that pull to start delving back into toying around with comic artwork?
So around like 2017, I was really going hard with the guitar building. Like that was my full-time job. It was a great job, benefits. I was painting guitars, so it was kind of already a creative job. But I needed like a hobby. So I started wanting to draw, and I started drawing again and doing the same thing, trying to copy like Capullo covers and just looking at tutorials online for fun. And I was just drawing, and I came up on this colorist. His name's Kurt Michael Russell. He has a channel on YouTube where he does
Yeah,
coloring tutorials.
great channel.
Yeah, it was like I didn't even know the coloring was a job that people did. I didn't think about it that way. I knew pencilers and inkers and stuff like that, but I didn't know colorist was a separate job.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was like, this looks fun. I just always remembered as a kid I would draw something and it would come out like super nice, and then I would try to color it and completely like
That's
just like
me. That's me with inking. That's what I
I
feel
would
like.
even ink it like pretty good. Like I like, oh, I'm so happy with this. Let's color it, and
I
I'll
do
get some color
I'm
pencils and
happy with
like
my pencils, and then I ink it, and I'm like, oh man, I ruined it.
so I was like, hey, let me try this digital. I didn't, I was like, oh, so that's how they get it to look so nice. So they do it on digital. and I started trying it, and turns out I'm better at coloring than I am at drawing.
There you go.
So I just, before I knew it, I was getting offered like little gigs here and there, and I don't know, the side gig turned into the full-time gig.
That's awesome. Now, did you have a basic underlying understanding of like color theory and lighting and that type of stuff? Had you gleaned any of that from, because you said
Um,
you were getting to be creative and maybe do some painting on guitars and stuff. Had you studied color at all, or was it mainly just kind of learning through doing?
um, I learned from doing a lot, and I learned from Michael Russell quite a bit because he has courses and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
once I was like, hey, I really like this, I want to get good at it. Um, I started kind of doing the research and all that. Like I've always kind of
learning
been a
all
good
the
student.
fundamentals, right?
Yeah, like through the internet, that's how I learned to play guitar, and like, so I've always kind of been good at learning things on my own, like via like YouTube University or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
you're so blessed to come up at an age with YouTube University.
I mean, I remember when YouTube University was not open yet.
Yeah, I remember all I had was my comic book greats VHS tapes with
Oh
Stan
yeah.
Lee
Uh,
sitting down with McFarlane and Liefeld and Jim Lee and Wills
yeah.
Portacio, and you would fast forward to the end so you could watch them draw. And that was what I tried to learn from back in the day, because
Oh, for
we had
sure.
we had How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way was pretty much one of the only books back in the day, and
Hmm.
then had those videos, and now, man, you could spend thousands of hours on YouTube and
Yeah, you
never
can
run out
watch
of.
Jim Lee draw live
Yeah,
and
yeah,
hang out with him.
yeah, and be blown away with the fact that he draws something that we think is beautiful, and he like erases the whole thing and redraws it three different times.
Yeah, I love when he shows the piles and the garbage of like the sketches that he just like, this one's trash. You're like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah, please stuff those in an envelope, and
Can I
I'll
take
pay.
out your trash?
Yeah, I'll pay the shipping.
Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, I kind of started just messing with it, and eventually, I don't know. I guess I've I don't think I ever had like a formal kind of art education kind of thing, but I've always been very, like I said about my wife, like I have an eye for like what I think looks cool,
Yeah,
and maybe like kind of like a natural sense of color theory or something. A lot of
yeah,
people in my family are either musicians or artists, so I think I have a little bit of like the DNA
yeah. There's probably
in
a
there.
little innate artistic talent buried somewhere
Yeah,
in there, right? It's
and
just a matter
even
of finding the place that it needs to come out.
yeah, and even when I was in play music and stuff, I was the guy that like would draw the thing that's gonna go on the t-shirt or so I've always kind of been into the art part of it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until maybe around 2017 that I even started doing art again and really like practicing and trying to learn.
Now you said it was fairly quickly, relatively quick that you started to get some of your work seen and then started getting little gigs here and there.
Hmm.
Do you remember kind of what you would consider like a professional coloring job was?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny because maybe last year I went to C2E2 and they were having this award show called the Heroic Awards.
Yeah.
And the first book I ever colored and got paid for won an award.
Holy cow.
And people were like, "Oh, dude, like you won something." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I found out it was for that. I thought it was really cool. But
Yeah.
also, when you look back on stuff that you colored such a long time ago, like literally your first job, you're like, "Oh, I wish I would have done this and that." But
Yeah.
it still looks pretty good. It holds up. It holds up.
Yeah, it's the old hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can say that about the thing I colored last night.
Yes. Yeah, I'm the same way
So,
with any of my drawings. It's like, oh man, I could do that better like the next day, but it's that
mhm.
whole, pushing yourself to kind of put that note in the back of your brain for the next piece of work that you do. Because
Exactly. I
I
think that,
suffered so much from the throwing it away and starting over that I wasn't making
yeah,
any forward progress.
right. And when you're doing stuff that is like professional work, maybe I don't want to say professional because I think any work can be professional level, even if you're not getting paid for it. But when you're,
Yeah.
when you're working on a book or like you're getting paid or you have a deadline, you have to just, the thing has to get produced. So as much as you may have issues with something, or maybe something was hard or didn't come out quite how you thought, at some point you have to learn to like say this page is done,
Yeah.
and I have 10 more to go. So let's keep it rolling.
Now, when it comes to coloring, I think, because in my opinion, you know, coloring on comics, we have our penciling, our inking, but coloring, that's like the final stage that really brings the artwork to life.
Hmm.
So, and I'm somebody that loves looking at pencil art and black and white art, but a good colorist really brings life, breathes life into the page or into the piece of work. So let's take people through a little bit of that process, because I don't want to assume everybody listening or watching is a process junkie like myself.
Hmm.
So I'm going to pretend like I don't know the process. And why don't you tell everybody kind of, if you were going to take a piece of art, say I sent you one of my little cover, mock-ups I did or whatever, and
Hmm.
you're going to color it. What's the first thing in the first step and the stages that you go through to
Hmm.
color a piece?
So I think the process of making any art is pretty subjective to everybody. Everybody has their own routines and maybe even you can call them like rituals, because if you're doing it every day, it's like you kind of do the same thing all the time. But for coloring in general, you would get the line art, prepare it. So if it has blue line, you would remove the blue line and make sure the inks and everything are like good to go for reproduction. Then you would do a process called flatting, which is kind of a technical part of coloring. It doesn't
Probably the
necessarily
most
have.
tedious part, right?
Yes. So in my case, and in most cases of people who color professionally, they will hire somebody to do that part of the process, because if it can take up, 3 hours or something to flat a page, especially if
Yeah.
it has a lot of detail. So that's a lot of time that you could be actually doing the coloring. So the flatting is more a technical part, so that it can allow you to, for example, like select only the people's faces or like their shirts or, the trees in the background or whatever it may be. That's the purpose of the flatting. Once you get the flats in, you would set your base colors. Superman's outfit is blue and red and yellow, and his skin is Caucasian, whatever. You pick all the colors for everything. Once you have that, I like to kind of conceptualize everything, you know, read the script. Is this going to be daytime, nighttime? What are the important beats on the page? Who's saying what? Because depending on what people are saying in the script, maybe you want to draw more attention to this guy. Maybe you want to draw more
Right.
attention to that guy. Maybe it's a scene where they're plotting to kill somebody or something. So you have to think of like the color vibe and the storytelling part of it. That all kind of happens in like the conceptual stage. I can kind of, some people say that like when they're drawing, they read a script and they see the movie like playing in their head, and that's how
Yeah.
they choose the shots and everything. It's kind of the same way for me when I'm looking at a page. I, kind of see the vibe that I'm going for, and I try to think of references in my mind of things that I've seen in movies or cartoons or whatever that fit that. And then, go from there, start rendering, think of where the light sources are coming from. It gets, very technical after
Oh
that with
yeah.
with all that stuff. But I think once you do it and you do it all the time, it doesn't seem that technical. You just kind of like go.
Yeah, you're not really thinking about it at that point. It's kind of built into your muscle memory, I'm sure. Once you get
Yeah.
in that flow state, You're just whipping on through there.
Yeah, yeah. And once you've colored faces a bunch of times, you kind of know, where the light goes for in most, most artists will draw pretty similar lighting scenarios. And sometimes you'll get, some weird ones if it's like uh specific like uplighting or something like
Yeah.
that. But in general, you can kind of get away with like the usual suspects of where the light falls on a face or something like that. So,
Do you does all your kind of study now of the technical aspects of coloring, like are you looking at anything that you pull from, or are you just strictly learning as you go still to this day as you're working on different artist pieces?
a bit of both.
Yeah.
I usually don't look at a lot of reference, which is maybe to my detriment because I don't know. I feel like as much as I think that looking at reference and studying a reference is important, if you rely too much on reference, it becomes just like copying,
Yeah.
and you're not letting your own flavor get into it, you know? If you're referencing every single shot of everything and at that point you're just copying, in my opinion. Obviously, some
For
people can do
sure.
amazing, like Alex Ross references everything, but his stuff is incredible. And it
Yeah.
looks so realistic because he's painting it like from
Exactly.
life.
Yeah.
So that has its merits, but to me, it's like comics are also like it's good to make it look realistic, but it's comics. Sometimes you just make it up.
How much do you, how much have you developed your own kind of custom palette as far as the colors you like to use? Because you know how when you look at film, like people can tell, like, oh, so and so directed this because
Uh,
he always, the way he has his stuff color graded, it always looks this, like Zack Snyder, for example, always
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's got that look. Oh, it's a Zack Snyder movie. J.J.
Hmm.
Abrams has certain things he does with the crazy lens flares and things. And
Yeah.
do you kind of have you developed? Do you feel something like that of your own when it comes to coloring? Do you use or lean towards a certain color palette depending on the type of project you're doing?
I don't know. I think maybe that's something that I will be able to tell in the future. I
Yeah.
think at this point I'm still kind of like in the deep end trying to trying to stay afloat sometimes.
Yeah, it'd be
And
interesting
just
to see like do you feel like you have a style? You know, is this a, do you have a specific style of coloring to where somebody could put a lineup of a few pieces and be like, oh, he colored this one, you know?
I think maybe I do. That would be something to ask
Yeah.
when I guess because I'm still, I would say I'm still kind of an up and coming guy. So I feel like maybe that would be something that people might say about my art looking at it in the future. I guess me myself, I just like I said, I'm just trying to do my best. So I don't do things on purpose a lot of the time as far as like, oh, this is my style, so I do it like this.
Yeah.
I just, I look at the piece and I'm like, okay, I think this will look cool and I do my thing and and you know.
Yeah. Well, something you said that was really interesting to me was about like reading the script and figuring out the beats and the mood of the scene and what stuff needs emphasis and all of that. I didn't really, I guess subconsciously I probably knew that a colorist would need to do that, but
Hmm.
the importance of that has to be, great. Like, is it day or night? Like, is it
Oh yeah.
because color can convey also a sense of tension or unease depending on what colors you use. So the fact that
Yeah.
you brought that up makes me lean towards the fact that you probably do kind of have a certain palette that you use if you know the scene needs to be more moody or
Yeah.
gritty or so
I think there's maybe a standard when you look at comics. Certain things are depicted in certain ways. Just kind of like if you draw, like Kirby Crackle means a certain thing,
yeah.
or like the Spidey sense. Like there's short, what do they call like shorthands
Shorthand, yeah.
for certain things in drawing that I think is the same for coloring. There's
Now, are
certain things
there,
that are standard, like
yeah,
for, fear or anger or, whatever.
are there particular colorists whose work you just look at and are blown away by?
Yeah.
Probably more
a,
than
a
one, right?
lot. Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I'd have to say Alejandro Sanchez,
Yeah.
Tomeo Morey, amazing. Ivan Nunez, FCO.
FCO
My,
did a lot of stuff on Otley and Invincible.
yeah,
That was some of my
and
favorite
Capullo.
Invincibles. Yeah, and Capullo too.
Robert Nugent, he does Spawn right now. He's a friend of mine, and his work is like next level. So I
Yeah.
look at a lot of those guys, and a lot of the guys that work at McFarlane, I'm just like, oh my God, like,
Pretty crazy, right?
yeah, they're all so great. I have to like step up my game every time I get a piece. I'm like, must be over 9,000.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's crazy that Todd is just, well, I mean, he has the eye for art, so he's going to be hiring people that can uphold whatever standard he has set in his mind. I have a feeling he holds a pretty high standard, so he's going after
Hmm.
people that are producing really quality work. I just had Thomas Nalick on. He's actually going to be the episode that's coming out the Monday after we're recording this, so
Oh, cool.
it'll already be out. By the time people listen to this, they'll already have seen that one. But
Hmm.
Thomas is like, yeah, he's like, he found me from my Instagram and had somebody reach out to me because he liked my art. And then when I met with him, he was like, so what do you want to draw? Like, what do you like to draw? And then he basically came up with a project for him to work on that was suited to him as an artist, which I thought was very cool.
That's
He's like,
awesome.
yeah, Thomas is like, yeah, that's unheard of. Publishers never do that.
Yeah, I do have to say that the people at McFarlane are like some of the most chill as far as like editorial goes that I've
Yeah.
ever worked up with.
Well, I think they understand artists.
Hmm.
And I think that's
Yeah.
important because, you know, publishers off, like I was listening to a video earlier today where the guy was talking about like, certain things you hear like, oh, every artist needs to be able to draw a page a day. And he's like, well, actually, that's probably a publisher saying that. Like, if you're talking to an
Yeah.
artist, it's like, well, sometimes it's going to take 2 or 3 days. Like
Yeah.
you don't always have to draw a page a day. Sometimes it's going to take you longer, but that's what the publisher wants.
Yeah. I mean, look at Brett Booth. How does he draw a page a day? It's insane.
Yeah,
His work
crazy.
is so detailed. And it's crazy because you think like some guys that are that detailed, maybe they don't put all that detail in the pencils, but Brett,
He does.
he does,
And he's been
and
doing
it's
that since
incredible.
day one
Hmm.
and maintained and evolved beyond where he was. Uh,
Yeah.
it's just, it's really amazing to look at his work that he's producing now. It's like the 90s Brett Booth on steroids.
Oh yeah. I got commissioned to color a piece that he did a while ago. That was a recreation of an old Phoenix cover where it's like all the X-Men on one
Yeah.
side of the double page and then the Phoenix like with the big flaming bird and everything, Dark Phoenix on the other side. And it was Brett inked by Adelso, so like,
Oh,
the team.
Adelso, yeah.
And so, man, I got those inks from Adelso and in my email, and I was just like zoomed in to like 1,000%. Like, look at all the lines, look at all the perfect like hatching. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
actually
something
one of
else to
my
see it high res.
I don't know who created it, but there is a brush, an inking pen for Clip Studio called the Booth, and it really it's funny. I don't know how they did it, but it does kind of mimic the style of like his line work when you ink with it. It's very versatile. Like it
Hmm.
made my stuff look way better. I know there's no magic tool, but I'm like, I actually enjoyed inking with that one,
Yeah,
and
and that's the difference right there. When you
yeah,
put a line down and it looks like how you see it in your head, it makes a big
exactly.
difference.
Yeah, I guess finding the right tool maybe is part of the trick with that, right?
Yeah, I think that stuff makes a huge difference. Like that's why I color on an iPad. I have a Cintiq and I color on an iPad.
Yeah,
And it's because I like the pencil. I mean, I learned on the iPad. That when I started coloring, the iPad Pro just came out.
right.
So that's just kind of what like I was like, yeah, you know what? Like I'll spend, $1,000 to get
Yeah,
myself a new iPad that I want anyway, and bonus I can color on it.
exactly.
And I started learning with it, and then I just got used to how, it's like, with a Cintiq or a tablet, there's like that parallax where like you're
Always.
not you're not coloring with the pencil, you're coloring with the cursor. It's
There's
just that you're
always that
controlling it with
offset.
a mouse shaped like a pencil.
Yep, there's
And I
always
never
that
got
slight
that with the iPad.
disconnect. Yeah,
hmm I never had that with the iPad. So when I got the Cintiq, I was like, whoa, I don't look at the pencil. I have to look at the cursor.
yep.
So it was like really weird and I never quite got used to it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go with the iPad. I'm comfortable with it. I got my tricks and I use Procreate, so it's not the easiest like
Yeah, it's a little
for a
different
colorist.
when it comes to coloring. It's a little different to
Yeah.
achieve the same things that the way you would do it in Photoshop versus how you do it in Procreate. Like all the
Mhm.
things you can do all the things, but it's different. And it always
Yeah.
blows me away too with Procreate. Like I'll see these videos like 50 things you didn't know you could do in Procreate and all
Uh-huh.
these hidden things. And I just saw one.
Swipes and three finger
I
push and
thought
whatever.
I thought I knew them all, and then the other day another new video came out with like 30 other things I didn't know it could do that weren't in the 50 things video. I'm like, holy cow, this
Yeah, man,
program
I
is
got I got my little like side keyboard. It's like a number pad kind of thing. And
yeah,
like I got all my things programmed on there to
all your
switch my
shortcuts.
switch my little tools or whatever and bring up the hue saturation and whatever I need. And then the
Nice.
swipes are I'm in there like
Feel like we are becoming one with the machines when we get in this flow state with these
oh yeah,
devices.
for sure. I mean, it gets to the point where I'll be trying to draw on paper and be like tapping it to
I
undo or
know.
like trying to zoom it. Like I'm just like, what
Yeah.
am I doing right now?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I've really taken to uh and it's come up on here before. Dan Fraga calls it tradigital, doing part of your process, traditionally putting it into the iPad, either
hmm
tweaking it or finishing it on there. Sometimes you take it in, you tweak it, you print it back out. That way you can have an
Yeah.
original to sell, which is what a lot of artists do. Or, go in there. I've actually been practicing my inking a lot on the iPad and having better success because I think I don't have that limitation in my brain of it being so permanent when I do it on the
Yeah.
iPad. So it's kind of
hmm
freeing me up and my stuff's getting looser and the lines are looking better. And then when I do ink traditionally now, it's coming through in the traditional inking. So it's
Yeah.
like it helped me unlock that part of my brain that was holding me back.
Yeah. You don't have the fear of messing it up.
Yeah. So it's definitely,
It's weird to do that because um I kind of had to develop that when I was painting guitars because when you're painting guitars, there's no do-over.
oh, yeah.
Like do-over means like you gotta sand the thing back down and start over.
Right.
So it's like a commit, like this thing is gonna be this finish, like we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to jump right in and it's that all gas, no brakes type of
Yeah, and
thing, right?
just hope it comes out good. Well, I mean, in the beginning, hope it comes out good, but later you're
Yeah.
just like, I have six bursts to paint today, so let's go.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to your coloring, how long does it take you to color a piece? I'm sure every piece is different, but if you're like working on a cover as opposed to like a sequential page, like is a cover easier in some regards compared to a page with a bunch of panels and a lot more people on it and background elements and stuff like that, or does it just depend on the level of detail that the artist has put in?
It's funny because sometimes you would think a cover is like, oh, this drawing looks pretty easy. This should be quick. And then you get into it and it is not quick. Because sometimes what you think looks quick when you just see the line art, when you have to color it, you're like, what am I gonna do on the background? Or like,
Yeah.
you know, it just gets complicated because you want it to look a certain way. Maybe you've never done that before, so you have to figure it out. And it took you like 3 hours to figure out how to paint the clouds or whatever.
Yeah.
So you never know, but I usually do pages in about like 2 to 3 hours because even though there's a lot of faces and stuff, that usually is what takes the longest. The backgrounds are a lot of times are there's no background or it's like one of those panels that is just a blank background and it's not supposed to be, it's just supposed to be like a
I was gonna
color or
ask you
something.
about that. Like,
Hmm.
it kind of lays in the lap of the colorist at that point if the artist
Uh-huh.
just decides they're not putting a background
Yeah.
in there, and in the script says, "Hey, they're in this setting."
Yeah, yeah, it can get tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like, well, people forget that the job of the colorist is storytelling, you know? Even though, yeah, of course you're doing a lot of painting and rendering faces and all that, like that's all fine, but if you can't convey the story, then you're not doing the job right.
Yeah.
That's the main part of the job, aside like the art level or like the what's the proper way to say it? Like the skill is kind of like that's already a given, like you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to have the skill. What makes the difference is being able to tell the story and being able to guide the reader to the right places in the page.
Yeah, you're kind of like the last line of defense in a way
Hmm.
in that creative process because, I've talked to a lot of inkers on here, and they've talked about the importance of them needing to understand anatomy and perspective and all these different things because if they are working with a newer penciler who's maybe not as seasoned, as proficient with their drawing skills, the inker a lot of times will have to go in and fix stuff. And
Yeah,
then by the time it gets to you, hopefully most of that's fixed. But then if there's some things left, like, oh, this really isn't leading the eye where it needs to go to read, properly read through the page and
yeah,
everything. Are you using color to kind of direct the eye as well?
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Using the contrast in the right places will draw the eye to where you want it to be. So a person that does this really well is Marte Gracia. He's I mean, I'm sure everybody knows Marte Gracia, but right now he's doing Amazing Spider-Man with Pepe Larraz.
Yeah, it's crazy. The colors
And
on that are insane.
oh, the colors on everything he does are
Yeah.
insane. But if you notice, next time, I don't know if you've noticed, but next time you look at just any page he does, he will have figures in the front that are just completely one color or
Yep.
like just purple and like different shades of purple to differentiate the parts. No rendering, nothing. And that's on purpose because that's not important. You're supposed to look past those people and look at the Green Goblin in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So he puts all the detail, and even within the, focal point, let's say it's Hobgoblin or something, you'll notice he puts a lot of detail in the face, but maybe not so much on the legs because you don't need to be
Yeah.
looking at the legs.
Exactly.
So
Sometimes it's what you leave out, right?
yeah, so contrast is everything, whether it's cool and warm or lots of detail against no detail or very bright, very dark. All those things can be used to lead the eye where you want it to go.
Yeah. What are some projects that you have cooking right now that you're able to talk about? Because I know every
Um,
artist I have on, it's like,
yeah, it's
oh,
like,
I've got all these cool things I'm doing, but I can't say anything. You got
yeah.
anything that you're currently working on, or stuff that is getting ready to come out soon that's already been announced that you can talk about?
Most of the stuff that I'm working on right now, I can't talk about,
See, I knew it.
but I do have some things that have recently come out. Most of the stuff that I have coming out on a regular basis is like my McFarlane stuff. Pretty much for the last few months, I've had a few covers in like all the solicits, so that's been really great
Yeah.
to see some of the stuff I have. I think it's in June. I have my first two covers coming out for the main title.
Holy
which
cow,
is
dude.
like, you know, from
Unbelievable.
a kid that like literally like picked up Spawn
Yeah.
and didn't know anything about covers and was like about comics at all and was like, holy crap, what is this?
Yeah.
To like, you know, coloring something on Spawn is like.
Mind
So I have
blowing.
one cover with Raymond Gay, who's one of the artists that I've been like so grateful to
Love
be paired up with.
love that. Yeah, love his work.
Yeah, I've been paired up with him quite a bit at McFarlane, so it's been awesome. Every time I get one of his covers, I'm just like, yes. And then actually, it's funny because that issue, the A cover and the B cover, I colored both of them. So
Oh,
one is
nice.
Raymond Gay, and then the other one is Danny Earls, which is like,
Oh, Danny's amazing. Yeah, Danny's blown up like crazy. Like Danny had initially scheduled coming on here, and then we had to we were trying to reschedule.
mhm.
And but since he's blown up and he's like literally working on every project under the sun now, it's been really hard to get it booked.
Oh my God. I remember Thomas Healy, the editor in chief, sent me those covers that he did that I colored. One of them has been announced, the other one not yet.
Yeah.
Um, and I was just like, thank you so much. Like
Danny
his
has the
stuff is so
opposite
amazing.
problem of the artists we were talking about that don't leave backgrounds and they
Oh
don't put
yeah.
backgrounds. He
But
puts
I
the
like
most
that.
elaborate architecture and just beautiful perspective. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a wonder to look at.
Yeah. I've always been into architecture. Even as a kid, like I was like, I want to be an architect. Like
Yeah.
when you're, whatever, like 6 years old or whatever. And so his pieces are just like that's like a treat for me. I love buildings and coloring cities and stuff like that. It's awesome. And he draws all the characters super
Oh
cool.
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I really enjoyed working with him, and I hope I get to do some more stuff with him.
That would be really cool. That was something always drew me to McFarlane's art too. McFarlane always put in
Hmm.
awesome backgrounds. Like he
Yeah.
always, even if it was just an impression of a background, it was still cool, and
Hmm.
it still was used as a design element to draw your eye to the parts of the page he wanted you to look at and everything, which is
Yeah.
such a underappreciated skill, I think.
Yeah. Capullo, man. Like Capullo's my favorite artist of all
Capullo's
time.
like the master, man.
And like just everything that he draws, like the backgrounds, the even like the character he puts into the buildings, like
Yeah.
a little random gargoyle, or like this building will have like a broken window or something. Like I'm a huge art nerd, so when it's hard for me to read comics, like it takes me like 4 times to like read a book because I'll start reading it and then be like, oh,
Yeah.
look at the textures on the wall over here, and like then be like, oh, I don't know what's happening again, let me
I'm the
start
same
over.
way. Yeah, I mainly flip through for the art and certain ones I read, but I just get so caught up in the artwork and then trying to me as somebody who draws and everything and trying to like how did he pull off that angle or that shot like
Mm.
in reverse engineering and in studying just like with Capullo, it's his shots, like his camera
Oh
shot, his
yeah.
angles he chooses, where he puts the camera, just everything about his work. Like he's in my top three, like favorite artists of all time. I don't even like putting them in order because I hold them
Yeah.
all like he could
They're
be
all
number
number
one.
one.
Yeah, one day he's number one. Another day Ryan Otley's up there for me. Another
uh,
day it's somebody else. So
yeah.
yeah, Greg is just his work is insane.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of line art. Even though I'm a colorist, like I collect artist editions.
Yeah,
Something comes out where it's like the black and white, I'm like, yeah, I
it's a
gotta get
real
it.
problem. I hope you have a lot of storage because my this whole shelf over here, you won't be able to see it, but that has. I'm gonna count real quick. At least 30 artist edition, the big IDW ones
That's
stacked on
dangerous
top,
all the way up there,
stacked
man.
on top of it. And then
You need to put
there's
some straps up there, dude.
it's a heavy duty one. It's bolted. And then the there's one, two, Three, four, five more on
Yeah,
on the ground.
I got into the game kind of late, but I have I don't know, maybe like 10.
It's slippery slope.
Oh, I know. I got that Capullo one already, like in the books.
Which Capullo one?
They're releasing the Spawn Vault number
Oh,
3, and it's
oh,
all
are
Greg
they?
Capullo.
I
Yeah,
didn't see the announcement. I have the
yeah,
first
yeah,
two.
yeah. They have the solicit out for I think it comes
Oh,
out next month or this
what?
month.
There goes
Mm.
my bank account.
Oh yeah, I'm late to the game, bro. Like now I want to buy the first two, but they're ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, they got marked up like crazy. I was
Hmm.
lucky to get in on the ground floor on those.
I know. I'm hoping that like this Capullo one sells really well, and maybe they'll be like,
Yeah.
let's do a reprint.
Yeah, the first two, I mean, those are so special because Todd, he's not going to sell any of his original Spawn stuff, from the issues that he did. So it's like getting to see that stuff is probably the only time you're going to get to see it that close to you.
Oh yeah, like the Jim Lee X-Men one is
One of my
insane.
favorites. Yeah.
That thing, like I look at it all the time, and I'm just like, oh my God, like this is the coolest art ever. Like
Yeah.
I want to buy two so I can rip one apart and put it up on my wall.
There's another really cool one, and you might already have it. I'm going to grab it and show it to you. This one, this one's hard to get,
Oh
and
yeah, the compendium, the
it's
original
also marked
compendiums.
up, right? Because it's the first
Hmm.
edition and it's not in print, but that's all,
Yeah,
and
I
it's got
remember those.
Capullo and McFarlane stuff. It's just like mind blowing again.
Yeah, I love that stuff, man. It's like, yeah, it's funny. I'm a colorist, but like there was a time where all the art in my studio, like on my walls, was like all black and white.
Yeah.
Just like I don't know if you know, like Jonathan Glapion,
Oh, yeah.
he used to sell these like artist edition prints of his inks over like Capullo and stuff.
Yep.
And I would just like anytime he would put some out, I'd be like, I want them all.
You got to collect them all. It's like Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that one day they do an artist edition of the New 52, like or whatever, just Greg Capullo's DC stuff,
Yeah.
because I would love to see like Dark Knight's Metal and like
Yeah.
all that stuff.
I have like the quarter owls, the pencil only one they did, and
Oh, the
all that stuff.
unwrapped.
Yeah, the unwrapped ones. I have like all the unwrapped ones, I think, and it's just, yeah, never ending study for me.
Hmm. Hmm. That's the thing. I wanted to be a penciler, but it's so hard, man. Like
It
drawing the
is.
cool Batman is the easy part.
Yeah, it's especially when you get into sequential art and storytelling
Hmm.
and all of that. And everybody wants to do the cool pinup or the cover, but when it gets into like leading the person's eye through the page and what shots you're choosing and having to draw backgrounds and literally needing to have
Yeah,
the ability to draw anything you're required to draw, whether that be a horse, a telephone, a taxi cab,
I
like,
know. And
yeah,
telephones are just deceptively hard to
right?
draw. And even just like, you might have an idea of what a telephone looks like, but if it's not in the vibe of the script, you have to go and look for a reference of like the what telephones did they use in 1998 or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
It's
listen,
tough, man.
I know we could sit here and talk all night, especially with our shared love of Greg Capullo artwork. Um,
Oh, it's been already quite a bit of time. Yeah, I didn't
it's
realize.
already been almost an hour, uh, but I always usually cut it around an hour because I always, when I vibe so much with a guest and we have such a great conversation, I always want to put the invite to have you back on so we can talk about more of this stuff.
Of
And
course,
so I'd love to have you back on, especially get you back on when some of these secret things can be announced, right?
definitely.
Well,
Sounds
let's take
good.
this time here at the end to give you the spotlight and let everybody know where they can find you, the best places to interact with you, follow you online, keep track of what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, X, all the things. For the most part, I'm at Steve Cannon. I think on X I'm Steve Cannon underscore because squatting on my
Yeah.
on my
You
name.
and Rob Liefeld, somebody squatted his too.
Yeah, the guy has like 2 followers and like no
Yep.
posts. I'm like,
Not
come
even
on, man.
using it. Yeah.
Yeah, so mine is Steve Cannon underscore. But Instagram and X, I'm on there. If you message me or like my stuff or whatever, I will reply. Love to hear people's thoughts and everything. So I'm out there. I'm happy everybody's like been enjoying the McFarlane stuff. I'm super happy to be doing that, and hopefully I can share some more of the things I'm working on soon.
Awesome. I look forward to it. I thank you for being on tonight. I appreciate you. Hang out with me for a moment here while I let everybody know the following. You guys, you're listening to the podcast, which means you already found it, or you're watching us on YouTube. I always recommend watching because the guests always have cool stuff in the background, or they're showing stuff on camera. Like I'll be grabbing books off the shelf to show. A lot of the artists show pieces up or have cool. Like I didn't even ask you about all your awesome figures you have on the shelf behind you there.
These are all Batman black and whites.
Yeah.
Like I
And some
said, I have a
original
thing
art,
for
it
black
looks
and
like.
whites.
You got some
Oh
original
yeah,
art
these
back
are
there
some of
too?
those let me turn the right way.
The
Some of those artist
Glapion
edition
ones?
prints. Yeah.
Nice.
That's Greg's cover for he did one for White Knight, and then
Yes.
the one on the top is the infamous upside down Batman
Awesome.
getting stabbed by the Talon, which is like
Yes.
epic.
Iconic.
Uh-huh.
Well, everybody, see, even more incentive to watch the YouTube version. If you're enjoying the podcast, you can like, subscribe, share with a friend. But in the meantime, I encourage you to keep it nerdy.